Welcome to the Ohio AgNet podcast. I'm Matt Reese. I'm the editor for Ohio's Country Journal, joined by Dusty Sonnenberg with the Ohio AgNet, and he's Ohio's field leader. And today we are very fortunate to be joined by Pat Hord. He's a hog producer in Northern Ohio and serves on the National Pork Producers Council board. Thanks for being with us today, Pat.
Yeah, yeah, you bet. Yeah, good morning.
So, first off, the weather here in June has been not very Juney. It's been sort of maybe May-y or maybe even April-y in some cases. Pat, how are things looking up there in the Northern Ohio area in terms of this odd weather we've had?
Yeah, it's we were like others, we were really dry until about a week ago. We've had about 2 inches over the last week, and so that's really greened things up. Obviously, it's still, we'll still need more, but that gave us a shot in the arm for right now. I think some of the later planted corn looks a little, a little stressed and still trying to figure out. And after being cold last week, I think so. But I think we'll get going here with it warming up this week. So.
Dusty, you guys ended up a little bit on the short side for some of the rain around the state, at least initially. Did you guys catch up more last week?
We did. I do need to commend you on those advanced meteorological terms you use, though. Juny and May. Those are ones that they don't typically throw out because they go over people's heads. But
I'm
that
cutting
was good.
edge, you know.
You are. Yeah, we did. On our farm, we got about 1.25 inches total between two different shots, which was much needed. We're still about 1.5 inches or so, maybe below where we would normally be at this time. The hope is long range forecast maybe this coming weekend. If not, I think we could be at risk of getting some drought stress again, out there. The rain definitely helped. And with what the crops, what we saw with crop response after that rain, and now with warm weather in the forecast, I think things are going to really jump, both the crops and the weeds. But hopefully some of that rain keeps on coming, at least to get us through. And now that we've got plants rooted down, we need to get some of that top growth going too.
Yep, and I think most of the state saw some, but down here in Fairfield County, we got about a half inch out of that first shot, and then we got on last Monday, a week ago, it rained about 2 inches here in a day. It was we got a little bit too much there for maybe what some folks were needing. The soybeans across the road from me weren't real thrilled with sitting underwater for another day or so after that, but thank goodness for that rain, and hopefully it does keep coming. We are going to be talking with Pat about Prop 12, and that is a Supreme Court ruling that came through in mid-May and has real implications for not only the hog industry, but really states' rights and consumers around the country in terms of pork and other types of meat production. So we're going to be really digging into that. But first, we better talk about some audio we got, Dusty. I had a couple really nice interviews about wheat. I talked with Ken Davis with Grow Pro Genetics, and a great guy, and really had some interesting things to say about their wheat program, their breeding program, some things they're looking at, not just in terms of bumping up yield and improving quality, but also looking at milling quality, the quality for the bakers and so forth. So good stuff there. I also talked with Neil Horam with Mercer Landmark, and he talked about a program they're working with in terms of encouraging and rewarding wheat production around the state. So good stuff there about wheat, and it's getting close to July here, so we got to start thinking about wheat. What about you, Dusty? You got a couple nice interviews as well to talk about.
I did, and probably to just go right along with what you were discussing, I had a chance to catch up with Stephanie Karoff. She is a OSU Extension field specialist for agronomic crops. We talked a little bit about what the growing season has looked like, sort of the split planting season and then turning dry. But now, as we have caught some of that moisture, looking ahead to what's probably going to be a little bit of an early wheat harvest, but the potential for double cropping soybeans behind that and some different things to keep in mind. So great tips and information there from Steph. Also caught up with Tommy Herd this weekend. Now, Tommy is a farmer up in Fulton County, the Metamora area. Folks know where that's at. Fulton County every couple of years hosts a huge event. They call it Breakfast on the Farm, and it's coming up this coming Saturday. They've got 3,900 people pre-registered for this event to come out to the Hers farm and have breakfast and tour the farm. They're a diversified operation, so they've got all your cash grains. They also raise processing tomatoes. They have a small cattle operation and some livestock. So a great opportunity for folks literally to get out for breakfast on the farm and see everything going on. But that is coming up, and Tommy talks a little bit about their family operation and what folks can expect to see when they come out. So good stuff there as well.
That's a bunch of breakfast right there, 3,000 people.
That's going to be a lot of breakfast.
So, Pat, I was just hoping you could give us a real brief overview of Prop 12 and the situation there in California and some of the impacts we're seeing here in Ohio from that.
Yeah, no, it obviously was, started, back in 2018 with the ballot initiative that restricted or I should say restricted, basically, yeah, restricted the use of how we manage and house pregnant sows. And so um, the frustrating thing about it all is it's really not about science. There's no scientific studies, there's no scientific basis for it. It's really just, take a page, kind of taking the page out of what the activists are doing is just they're trying to say, hey, what can we do to drive up costs to reduce meat consumption? And so it's really not about, not about like housing. This thing is not about housing or animal care or anything else. This is all about trying to reduce our meat consumption. And so, because, you look at, I had a group on Thursday or Friday from a group of FFA teachers and doing an education on swine production. And we were in our viewing room and kind of looking, and we were seeing, like this 20 square foot that we use today is plenty of space. They're not crowded at all. And to go to 24 and then if you're going to mix animals, and really the crux of it is then you got to mix the animal right as she's in heat. And so, you can't leave her in a protected crate and, while you're breeding, or you can do it by breeding for 6 hours. But anyways, you got to turn her loose and they're just in a compromised state when they're in heat and just had nursed a litter. So it's not anything about science. It's all about, increasing cost, and it will. And so I think that's a challenge. I think from Prop 12 will end up, it's just trying to see how we can drive up food cost. I mean, I think which is not really what we need in this inflationary environment. And so we need to, I guess, and allowing California, our team's trying to figure out how even us here on the farm, obviously we're looking at it from the MPPC standpoint, but us on the farm, we're trying to say, okay, what are we going to do? And if we do this standard in a year or two, will there be another standard? And will there be another standard? And it's just very costly. And so we really need to figure out a way and to way forward without having, just every state having their own standards. And so, or every ballot initiative state essentially is what we're talking about. So yeah, that's kind of the baseline of what the issue is, and then what the concern is for consumers, and then for us in agriculture to try to figure it out, because ultimately these things usually rest at the farmer level. I mean, everybody else along the chain has to say, well, that costs more, that costs more. And then we have to figure out how to navigate, conversions, and whether that will be, how long will it be? Will there be a premium for a period of time? And will that go away? Which we know probably eventually it does once. And then how to regulate supply for this specific thing. It just, I mean, the cage-free eggs have had dealt with similar things where they have to, you probably watched at times you bought cage-free eggs for the same price, and there's no way the production costs are the same. And so all those things are just challenges at the farm level that we have to figure out.
Yeah. And Pat has been on the cutting edge of working with some of that stuff, in addition to work with the Ohio Livestock Care Standards Board. We're going to dig into that and much more on Prop 12 coming up in the rest of the podcast. So be sure to check that out. It'll be available in digital today. Also up in the ocj.com website under podcast. So be sure to check that out. Thank you all for tuning in to the Ohio AgNet podcast.